All right, so it's been a few hours. We've got the freeze dryer defrosted now. I'm going to check it, make sure it's ready for the next batch. Okay, and this is the water from the last batch. It's about 3/4 of a gallon, and it's from my sister's batch, that last batch of turkey spam and canned ham slices. Now we'll go through here and make sure that I can see a little bit of water on the very top. So I'm going to go ahead and tilt it. Make sure that anything runs off of it. And it looked like just a very small little spot, so nothing to worry about. I'm going to use the little grabber tool with a paper towel and make sure that there's no damp spot still. Okay. Yeah, there's barely anything. And I don't see anything down these sides, so that's not a problem down these. Then we'll check underneath also. And really, I'm trying to get every little drop out. It's probably overkill and more detail than really is necessary. We'll go ahead and get this pre-cooling for the next batch. It's going to be another batch for my sister. I think she's got little cookies that she made that she wants to freeze dry. Okay, I'm going to close the drain valve and check for a seal ring, and there is a ring all the way around the seal, so I don't have to worry about air getting in there. And perhaps I'm too picky about that, because once the vacuum starts, it will seal. Even if it pulls in a little bit of air first, because it's so cold or there's a bit of ice on it, it will seal. It just may take a few seconds, and I don't like to have any extra hot air going in there. And by comparison to the chamber in there, which is going to be -40, out here at 70 is a 110 degree difference. By comparison, it's scorching hot out here in comparison to what's going to be in there. So I'm trying to eliminate any extra cold air in there. And for the pre-cooling, it's probably far less important. But if I can prevent any air from getting in there that's hot, I figure why not do it. Let's get this set and get it ready. And you could just press start and have it go pretty much automatically with whatever settings you have set. With the newer software, you've got a lot more options available. I run mine on custom all the time, so I'm going to put customize, start custom. That gives me a chance to change the tray temperatures and freeze time and final time if I want to. And then continue. It says it's 66 degrees in there right now. I forgot to put the thermometer in the right spot. That's okay. I'll take care of it in a while. It shows that it's only 66 in there right now, so it didn't warm up all that much, and it's cool down here. So it won't take that long till it's ready to put the food in. I like to make sure that it's the same temperature or colder than the food I'm putting in. Our freezers are set for somewhere between -5 and +5. So it's around 0 degrees when we take stuff out of the freezer. By the time I get them onto trays and get them moved over to here, usually it's up to about 10 degrees, sometimes a little worse, depending on how much mass the food has, so how much it can warm up. But I want the freeze dryer to be as cold as that food, so it's not warming up the food. So I want to put cold things into a cold freeze dryer. So as soon as it's cold, we'll get the food on the trays and get it in there. The freeze dryer's been running for about 40 minutes now, pre-cooling, and it's down to about 20 degrees and dropping pretty quickly. So we're going to get the stuff out of the freezer and get them on the trays. This time it's going to be little mini cookies that my sister cooked. So we'll get them over here onto the table and get them on the trays. It's time to cut a few more pieces of parchment paper because I don't have enough for the trays. And you may have noticed a number of times on the videos, or maybe not because they're so small, I've got a couple little felt pen marks on this table, and that's where I tape the metal ruler down. And with the metal ruler in place, oh, I gotta get a clean edge here. It was torn against the box. With the metal ruler in place, I can just use that as a tearing tool, tearing device, tearing doohickey. Anyway, so I line the paper up with the print on the table and then just tear it off against that metal ruler. It does a wonderful job. And we'd calculated this out a while back that each sheet this way costs us about 2 cents. With the higher prices on them, it might be up to 3 cents now. Anyway, that's a pretty low price, and we have it custom fit that way, and it's very quick and easy. And it's definitely getting close to time to cut a new roll. And we do reuse these often. If we're running the same thing in 2 or 3 batches, kind of a clean thing like vegetables or some of the fruits, as long as it doesn't leave stuff on here, we'll just go ahead and reuse it. If they get dirty, even one shot, we throw them away. And of course, raw meats, raw eggs, things like that, we don't reuse them. Okay, so that's ready, and we'll get the things on the trays. So tray 1, I gotta get my, these are pumpkin chocolate chip cookies, and they're just little cookies, and often when she does lots of little ones, she'll actually stand them all up. And I think this time, I don't know if she has that many, but we can still layer them a couple layers tall. So my thought was, could just plunk them on there and see how much we could get on a tray and how quickly. Because as long as they're not more than 2 to 3 layers tall, I'm not worried about it, because they'll do just fine. All the pumpkins in one bag?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to make them fit. These are kind of a cakier cookie, not as hard or solid as some of the other types. And cakier ones or bready type ones seem like they're more dry. They're strange. A dry, crispy cookie doesn't seem as dry after it's freeze-dried as this kind does. But these are delicious. But this is all of this kind. I don't want to start another tray just for a few, because you can always eat them. Okay, $17.57. I'm gonna see if I can stuff thermometer. Okay, Shishka cookie.
It's a lollipop.
So I've got the thermometer in there, and as I've mentioned before, thermometers are not required for freeze drying. I like to use it to give me some information during and after the process. And tray 2. Because I think both of these will probably fit. It says peanut butter chocolate chip espresso coconut.
Okay, this one, I don't think that one has coconut. But
Yep, it says it does.
Okay.
Espresso coconut.
That's
Okay,
great.
so peanut butter chocolate chip espresso and coconut. There's so much coconut it looks like an oatmeal cookie. This type of cookie is a low moisture type of thing. Should do fine. Could be one too many. I found a spot for one. Okay, last chance to eat any. 1709. I'm gonna stick a thermometer just between some cookies this time. These are a harder cookie. They won't, can't really stab a thermometer into here, and I'm not gonna drill a cookie. Now tray 3, we'll go ahead and get tray 3 and 4 at the same time, and then we can get the weights afterwards. They'll be lighter. Unless you have something else that could fit on a corner of one of these that would be compatible. Okay, well, this is going to be lighter than. So we'll get the weights of those 2 trays. This one's tray 4, 1451. Tuck a thermometer under a cookie. And then tray 3. And it's 1476. Okay, those two are pretty even that way. It's just right. And again, tuck a thermometer under a cookie or between two cookies. Keep it kind of covered. And we'll get that over to the freeze dryer. That took about 15 minutes to get those cookies on the trays, which is slower than we could do if we just poured them out there or if we knew how many should be on there and had it planned out. Anyway, during that time, the freeze dryer dropped more. Now it's down to 3 degrees. So now we can put the cold food in the cold freeze dryer. And probably these cookies warmed up more than that because there's very little mass to them. So they don't really hold their cold that much. So let's get those in. And it's vacuumed down a bit because of the cold. Oh yeah, I can get my thermometer underneath. I forgot to put that underneath last time. All right, and starting at the bottom, tray 4, cookies. Tray 3, more cookies. And of course, even more cookies. All right. The thermometers on those were showing about 20 degrees. So they didn't warm up too bad while we was working to get them in there. I want to make sure that there's a good seal ring all the way around. And there is. Yeah, so we've got a full seal ring all the way around there now. Now it'll continue freezing for almost 5 more hours. And then it'll start freeze drying. And because it's cold, those are lightweight, going to shorten the freeze time by 1 hour for a total of 5 hours. That should be plenty for these. Other than that, we'll see when they're done, which could be tomorrow night, because again, it's a low moisture item. So it'll either be tomorrow night or early the next day. And I don't do earlies. So I'll see when those are ready to come out. So don't go away, we'll be right back. So it's down to the last 2 minutes, so I should have been here a while ago. But it definitely went to the small batch cycle. It says it's only taken about 18 hours. And it was set for 5 hours of pre-freeze, or 5 hours of freeze and 11 hours of final dry. So there's 16, so that only leaves 2 hours, or just under 2 hours for the main dry. We'll go ahead and bypass that, or we could wait a minute and a half, but I'm going to go ahead and bypass it. Open the drain valve. We're going to get them out, check the weights, and put them back in for 2 more hours. With dry cookies like this, I have very little doubt that they're already dry, but we're going to check. So tray 1, a very full tray. Okay, so 1574, so it's lost close to 200 grams. And I'm going to switch that one with position of tray 2 in the machine, 1676. So that one's only lost about 35 grams, so considerably less water in this one. And now we'll switch those places. And I think I mentioned this before. This is another batch of my sister's items. So that one will go on top. And tray 1 I'll bring down here. And tray 3. And these almost look like oatmeal cookies, but it's not. There's just a lot of coconut in there. 1430. So that's about 45 grams down. And tray 4. 1419. And that's bouncing between 19 and 20, so I'm using the 19 because it's on its way down. So that one I'm going to put up 1 tray, or 1 rack space, and this one bringing down. Okay. All right, so get the shield back in place, and that makes a huge difference. Now get that closed back up and we'll get it restarted. So close the drain valve. Gonna restart it, give it 2 hours. I'll put 2¼ hours so we can stop it before the heaters turn off. So more dry time. I closed the drain valve and the vacuum pump's cool enough. So we'll be back in 2 hours or just a second on video. So don't go away, I'll be right back. 2 hours later, and it's time to take out the cookies, check the weight, make sure that they stop losing weight. It'll be interesting because it's not a huge amount of water in these to begin with, but there's a lot of them on the tray, so sometimes they kind of shield each other, so we have to check them to be sure. I'll down arrow past the last of that to turn it off. Open the drain valve. All right, so starting at tray 1. Oh, well, it wasn't done. So that's, double check, make sure that's 0. It is. Hey, 1567. So that's down by, well, it's going 67, 68. So it's still close to 7 grams in 2 hours. So it'll be going back in. And that's probably a function of the fact that some of these are stacked, piled, thrown on as much as 3 layers deep. And so the heat from the tray underneath is touching the bottom cookie. The heat from the tray above, or the heater pad above, heats the top cookies, but the ones in the middle kind of get shielded and take a little extra time. But it's only been 20 hours total so far. Okay. Tray 2. Now that one's only down by 1. 1675. But the other ones were more of a cakey cookie. So they were, I think, a wetter cookie to begin with. But if one's got to go in there, we probably might as well put them all in there. Tray 3, is that the same kind of cookie? 1429. So that's also only down by 1. So I guess technically we could do those. Let's get double check 4. Okay. And 4. 14, 18. I double checked the weights on the trays, and actually tray 4 was down only 1 gram. Tray 2 and 3 were down 2 grams each, and of course tray 1 was down oodles and oodles, like 7 grams. So we're going to put them all back in there, give them another 2 hours, and check them again. Better dry than sorry. So I'll see you back here in a couple more hours. And because it's such a low water load, we don't have to worry about defrosting. So even if we kept going till 7 or 8 tonight, the next batch can go in immediately because there's no defrosting and it's pre-cooled. So I'm not really too worried about that. And it's still just mid-afternoon now, or late afternoon, I guess. Okay. Be back in a couple hours, so don't go away. So, going to close the drain valve and put more dry time, continue, cool enough, and an extra 15. And I'm back. It's another 2 hours later. Going to take them out and check them again. Tray 1 was the only real problem one. The others lost just 2 grams. The others lost from 0 to 2 grams. And so they probably weren't a problem last time. But since the one had to go back in and couple of them had a couple of grams lost. Figured might as well just leave them all in there. So now let's get them out again. We have a low pressure, good temperature, and down to the last 15 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and bypass, oh, got to go down. Bypass the last of that. All right, so now we'll open the drain valve. So tray one again. Well, that's down another 4. 1563. I think we'll go back to the other plan, assuming the other trays are dry. We'll take those out and then spread these out onto multiple trays so that they're not so thick. So anyway, it's going to be going back in. Tray 2. Okay, no change on that. Tray 3, and no change on that. And tray 4. I'll look underneath, make sure it's not touching. And it's not touching. There's a space under there. So that's good. So this one still lost another 4 grams. It's going back in. The others can come out. This one can just sit here and wait until we get the final weights of the other trays, and then we can take a couple of trays or put those cookies on a couple of trays so that they are spread out a little better. The cakier cookies dry slower. So we'll get these moved over, weighed, and then we'll bring that tray over and spread it out onto a couple trays and get them back in here. So first, we'll get over and weigh. Okay, we'll get the gross weights now. Tray 2, 1664. Tray 3, 1420. Well, those don't look like they're the same cookie. Tray 4, 1408. Okay, so we've got the weights, so now we can kind of combine some things and get one of these trays filled with the other cookies. Yeah, these look different. Did I put a tag under it? I have this. This says oatmeal chocolate chip cookie.
Yes.
Okay, so that one is oatmeal.
And this one's peanut butter chocolate chip espresso.
Okay, well, I don't have one with anything about oatmeal. That's definitely coconut. This has coconut also.
Yeah, oatmeal chocolate chips would too.
Okay. Oatmeal chocolate chip with coconut?
And the peanut butter ones, I took the fork.
Okay.
It's got the fork ones on the top.
Okay, so these appear to be the same as those. Okay, there we go. Yep, so that's the same. And I'm just going to put a clean one on here and go get the other cookies and share the space. And we'll get them back in there and give them another 2 hours. And then this should be the best possible drying that we could get. We'll go check them in a couple hours again. Until then, bagging. The peanut butter chocolate chip espresso coconut are all bagged. Now on to the oatmeal chocolate chip, which should say chocolate chip, but I forgot the chip part. Anyway, it's not mine, so somebody else can fix them. There, one cookie. I'll fill mine full. We'll share them half and half. One bag for you, one bag for me.
Yeah, you eat yours.
So this would be a dozen. And we'll go. All right, so that's just a dozen. Plenty of room for more. You're going for a dozen and a half-ish? It depends on how you're going to use them too, because
A dozen's a lot for
it's a lot of cookies any particular time. There's a dozen cookies. So going for a dozen cookies in a bag. All right, that's it. We'll just continue getting all those into bags. Then once those are all filled, then we'll add oxygen absorbers and seal them. Another 2 hours later, and this time with them on a single layer, and they were probably done last time, but I don't like to take the chance, and I have no way to prove it unless I have a period of time that they're in there without a weight loss. It's the only way I know positively at the prices I'm willing to spend to know that they're finished drying. Down to the last 8 3/4 minutes, so we'll bypass the last of that with the little down arrow and then open the drain valve. Okay, we'll take the 2 out and see what we've got. So this is the tray 1 portion of it. And I don't know which one was which. Well, that would be that one. So 1160, and it's dropping to 1159. So 1160 was what it was when we put it in. So I think we're set now. And the other tray was 1151, and we're at 1150. You happy with those?
I'm happy.
Okay.
1 gram.
Yes. So, and perhaps less than 1 gram even. Because of the type of batch it was with extremely low water, there's almost no ice in there. So we're going to start the other batch right away. As soon as the trays are emptied, and we'll get them refilled and get them in there, because there's no reason to do any defrosting and no reason to wait. It's already cold. You know, the barrel part is already cold. Of course, the rack right now is warm, but that'll cool in just a few minutes. We'll get the time and the power usage and get these bagged. So it's showing a total time of 24.5 hours roughly. And since those didn't lose weight, I'm going to back that up 2 hours and call it 22.5 hours. And it would have been less if we hadn't stacked the cookies quite that way. Now, the power usage. So the power usage on those cookies was 24.24 kilowatt hours. I'm going to go ahead and reset that and have it ready for the next one. So to get this set for the next batch, I'm going to stop it with no defrost, make it nice and quiet for just a second, restart it with customize, start custom, and continue. I've got the final weights now of that last tray, so everything can be bagged off of there now, and I can calculate how much water was lost out of that whole batch. Cookies are a very low water batch, and the freeze dryer is ready for the next batch right now. So we'll get that going in just a second. I wanted to mention again, I mention occasionally, but I forget to mention it enough, I think. The weighing we do, the weighing of the trays and the food before, the weighing of it afterwards is not necessary for the freeze drying process. I like to know how much it lost, mainly because people ask me all the time, how much did it weigh before? How much did it weigh afterwards? How long did it take? How much power did it use? So I'm recording all of those for that reason. If I know it's things like soups, stews, chili, then I will weigh them before and after, and I simply put them in the little 7x7 pans when before I freeze them, so that I've already froze them in portions. And I use either 2 cups if I'm just going by volume, or 1 pound per tray, or up to 500 grams per tray. Well, not per tray, but the little 7x7 pan. So I'll use 1 pound or 500 grams or 2 cups. And if I put a divider in the middle, then I'll have ½ pounds or 1 cup on each side. And that's all I really need to know. So then I can weigh it afterwards and know how much water to put back in if I care. The only part that I think is really needed as far as weighing is the piece that has no use when you're bagging or anything, and that's the weight check weight. So we used to or usually would just use a post-it note or a piece of scratch paper to write the weight down on for the weight check. After we're done, we could throw it away because it doesn't matter. We're just weighing it again and again, hopefully just once, until it stops losing weight so that we know it's dry. Other than that, we don't care what that weight is. So it has no use other than that. But all the rest of the weighing that I do is not required for freeze drying. And so if it's things that we know that we're not normally going to rehydrate, like most of the apples we do, we're just going to eat them as dry apples, no reason to weigh them. You're not going to rehydrate them. These cookies, you're never going to rehydrate them, so it doesn't matter. But I'm still tracking it. Once you get started on tracking things, it's hard to stop. Most meats really don't need it because it'll absorb what it needs. Most vegetables will absorb what it needs. So I don't find that you need to track the weight or record it. I just do because I like to have more information rather than less information. Anyway, we'll get this last tray bagged and get it put away, or put it in little bags to take away to the sister. All of the cookies are bagged. They were bagged in 1-pint bags, and there's anywhere from 6 cookies on these bigger cookies that were on the 1/2 tray, up to 12.5 cookies, depending on what she felt like at the time. So now we'll get oxygen absorbers in these and then get them heat sealed. Okay, get these first 2 and kind of squish out the extra air and zipper them shut. And of course, working with the oxygen absorbers, want to get those in there quickly and get them closed and sealed quickly so that they're not trying to absorb all the oxygen from out here. You could use a chamber vacuum type sealer like some people do, or a seal-a-meal type one to pull out some extra air, or like we do, we just squish them down and pull out as much air, push out as much air as we can and zipper them shut. And occasionally for some of the bigger bags with a lot of air, we'll just use a straw and just suck out as much air as we can. And then heat seal time. Going to seal them as high up on the bag as possible. And do that one twice, make sure it's nice and toasty. All right, completely sealed, the very top edge of it with the full width of the seal, and room for a couple more tries if it's needed. All of the plastic bags that you can get are permeable to oxygen and moisture. It's just a matter of how much. So a Ziploc or a thin sandwich bag kind of thing is very permeable to moisture and oxygen. The metallized bags do an incredibly better job, and most other bags are somewhere in between. But all of them are going to have oxygen and moisture go through at some pace. One last thing we like to do before we store our bags is to write a gross weight on each bag. This bag right now weighs 112, maybe 113. It was going back and forth. And if they are going back and forth, we choose the higher number, so 113. This bag weighs 113 grams right here as it sets. If moisture starts going in, it's going to get heavier. So as soon as all these are labeled, they'll be ready to go into the little bag and get sent back home. Thanks for watching and thanks for supporting. And we'll see you on the next one. And on our side, that'll be just a few seconds because the freeze dryer is already cold. It doesn't need defrosted. The next batch is going in just a minute. I remembered all the parts this time. Audio and video. Woohoo! I win. Okay. A little over 3/4 of a gallon from that last batch. I'm not sure what that last batch was.
Yeehaw!
Oh, ham and spam. This is the water from the last batch. It's just over 3/4 of a gallon from that batch of my sister's turkey ham and, nope, turkey spam from my sister's turkey. Okay, and this is the water from the last batch. It's about, of course, it has chocolate chips, so not going to work in the freeze dryer. I saw it on the internet. I'll have to cut some of those things out.